It is Shirley Farrar, and you have entered Encouragement on Fire. So today is number 47 of our podcast, and this is a podcast about encouraging you through your process of overcoming or conquering cancer, sickness, and disease. And today's segment, number 47, we're going to start out this year doing something a little different. So, as you can see below, we've changed a little bit of our color to orange instead of our bright new red. And the reason is every time you see the orange, we are going to talk about occupations, professional occupations that assist individuals in defeating either cancer, sickness, or disease. I thought that that might be a treat this year because everyone knows that my profession, I am a career counselor, career coach. Many call us different things, professional school counselors. We have many names, life coaches, all the above. And so that is what I do in my regular job. But for my community organization, I am here to do Let's Talk Career Talk under the Encouragement on Fire platform. And this is my community service to you. I wanted to provide you some information on the individuals that assist in the eating disorders. So this month, January 2023, we've been talking about eating disorders. And it's important to understand who are the professionals that actually assist individuals that have an eating disorder. So I wanted to, just name a few and perhaps talk about their training, their education, their skill set, those type of things. I think that's really important because I think a few of you out there who are just starting out, you're getting ready to graduate from high school and you're looking for, transitioning to college, which eventually you will transition to the world of work. And if I can help in any capacity, I'm going to do that because as we are talking about conquering cancer, sickness, and disease, there are so many different occupations. You can go to college, you can go to technical school, you can do an apprenticeship. There's so many different things that you can do. There's so many personality types. And so I hope that throughout this entire year, each month, that we are empowering you to understand the different types of occupation choices that you may never even have heard of before, or maybe you did, but you didn't think that you could possibly do it. Okay, so whatever comes to you through these sessions, I hope that it is helpful. So the first one that I am going to talk about, this would be our counselors, our clinicians, our therapists. They're called so many different things. Some people call them psychiatrists. Some people call them clinical counselors, counseling psychologists, licensed clinical psychologists. There's so many different names. And yes, there are various certifications. So that's something that you're going to have to look into later on, unless you contact me through our Facebook group or other. I can provide you with additional links that you can then research. Yes, I am about empowering you to do the research. Lots of times we always want the magic pill or to someone to tell us everything. And I believe in giving you encouragement and almost setting a little fire underneath of you. So then you will go out and you will research what we talked about. Okay, so again, let's talk about it. So if it's a clinical therapist, they work with patients, they deal with mental disorders. And remember, we talked about the eating disorder that was related to mental health. So, can you go to an individual who is a psychiatrist or a clinician or a counselor? Yes, absolutely. These are the individuals, someone who has an LPC, right? A licensed psychologist, or even sometimes a social worker. Many of our individuals in the school districts, the K through 12s, we have our master's degree level of the professional school counselor. That's what I do in my profession. However, there's also our school social workers. They are licensed, some at the undergraduate level, some at the graduate level. So they are able to assist you in mental health issues, but just keep in mind, for that longevity, you want to make sure that the individual that you are talking with, if they're at the master's level, that they are practicing license under they're practicing under a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist that is at the doctorate level and has a license in that particular state. So that's really important, because every level that you go to with someone who has a psychiatrist or clinician degree, it really should be at the doctorate level, because they are very well versed in mental health disorders. And then they have individuals under them that have possible doctorates, as well as they may have the master's level. Keep in mind, no matter if they're at the master's level or doctorate level, they can still be under someone who has a doctor level clinician license, because there are individuals who are over several practices. So just keep that in mind. And that's something you really don't need to know, but you should make sure that you are seeing licensed individuals. Okay. And then we have the family therapist. The family therapist is definitely someone who can assist in marriages, but they also assist the children in the family who are going through the behavioral problems and things of that nature. So, is this person specifically for mental disorders? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this individual can assist in that process with other therapists to assist with someone's eating disorder. Also, you have a pastoral therapist. And can a pastoral therapist have a be licensed in mental health disorder, or can they be licensed? Yes, they can get additional licensing in that. Is every pastor a therapist? No. And so we need to make sure that they have the right license in order to counsel you on whatever that particular disorder is that you are going through. And then also, what are the skills? When you have an individual who is going to sit down with you for about the entire session, someone who's a psychiatrist or a clinician, a therapist, 80% of the time they're sitting, right? And it has to be a specific individual who enjoys sitting down. There's someone of you out there, you're saying, that is not for me. I'd like to move around. Then definitely this is not the occupation for you or the career for you. But someone who has, who wants to be a therapist, their skills is in, medical software. So they need to understand that analytical software. They need to know how to do spreadsheets. They also need to know how to do their calendar. Now, will they hire someone to be able to do their calendar for them? Absolutely. I hope and pray that everyone gets to that level. But when you're first starting out, you need to be able to do your own calendar and setting up appointments and those things. And usually you learn that at the master's level when you're underneath of someone else, because you're going to be responsible for your own calendar. So by the time you get to your own practice, or you're over practice and you have others under you, someone else at that point will be doing your calendar. And then also, that individual has to be an active listener. Oh my goodness, because they have to be able to summarize. They have to be able to paraphrase, right? There's so many different tools that are utilized that they need to know in order for them to actively be listening to what you're saying to them in order to assist you further. Remember, I'm briefly going over everything. I'm not going to go over everything in detail. And that individual also has to be a critical thinker because of all the techniques, all the tools, all the things that they have learned. And when you're speaking to them and you're telling them your life history, you're telling them what you've been going through, all those different things, critical thinking is key for them to be able to apply theory, apply technique, all these different things, strategies to assist you, not only for future references, but for that day. Because most of the time when we come to a counselor, we are in crisis, right? So if we're in crisis, that individual needs to be able to, if we're spiraling out of control, they need to be able to bring us back in, right? And to provide us peace that we can then move forward in whatever it is and have hope for the next day, for the next hour, and be okay, So I don't want to get too far into it. And an individual at this particular level, a therapist or clinician, a master's level social worker, individuals, like I said, each one I'm naming has a different level of education. So if you are a psychiatrist, psychologist, you're going to be at the doctorate level. If you're a social worker, you're going to be at the master's level. Um, you know, licensed practitioner, like I said, you're going to be at the undergraduate level going into the master's level. All of them are going to need certifications, training. You're going to need internships, right? An applied setting to be able to do your hours of being under someone who does that work at the doctorate level. And if you have a doctorate degree, they say that 34% of the individuals that are actually practicing as a therapist or as a at that level doctorate is about 34%. And then so if you have a more than a doctorate, which I have some friends or a friend who has a couple practices under her, and she has an even advanced beyond the doctorate and additional training. When you are getting to be a therapist who really heavily deals in mental disorders, it has to be someone at that doctorate level or beyond. And then everyone else falls under them, right? And we assist them in what they do best because that is what they went to school for. A doctor, a family practitioner, they go to 4 years of college, they go to 4 years of medical school, and then I think it's 2 years or 4 years beyond that of additional schooling, and I think it's the clinical setting. Well, psychiatrists is beyond that. They're always getting more and more education and specializations. Now, I'm not saying they can't start at the doctorate, of course, but they're always increasing, just like many of you as professionals who are maybe listening today. We're all required to do our professional development every single year. So you're probably going to do 6 credits if you're going to do a college professional development, or maybe it's some of the professional development associations or organizations that you belong to, and you're going to be making sure that you keep up your licensing and various training. So all of these things matter no matter who you are, whether you're an educator through K through 12 or higher education, whether you are a medical doctor or even specialists in the health industry. We are all striving to maintain our education and to make sure that we are updated in the new information that is available to us. So I want to continue. So there are, like I said, various individuals who are therapists, and the highest paying, I want you all to know this. So if you're thinking about being a clinician or a therapist, even a counselor or a school psychologist, anything like that, working in the industrial organizational psychologist, government work. that's the highest paid. So they're a little over the six figures. And then hospital, state, and local and private comes second. And they're paid slightly under the six figure, which would be like 99, something like that. And then you have the healthcare services or ambulatory. So this specific therapist will also be around the same range, maybe about in the 80,000 mark. And then if you're working for elementary or secondary schools for the state, local, and private, it'd be about $78,000. So they are good, healthy salaries at the level that they are at. Remember, the more responsibility that you take on, especially at the doctorate level, it's going to require you to more hours, more application in the process. You are going to supervise other individuals. So, of course, you're going to be paid more. And if you go into a private practice yourself, you're probably going to work more weekends. You're going to be doing more of the responsibility, even though you're training others to be under you. And eventually they're going to take on, your duties or your responsibilities, but you still must maintain over that practice to make sure that all of the patients are getting quality and assistance, resources, and that anything that is new in strategy that they are going to receive because you're going to train your staff. Let me see. Let's see. We have here, if you are a most clinical counseling and research psychiatrist, of course, like I said, are at the doctorate level, and a school psychologist, they're going to get an advanced degree, and that is going to be like an EDS or PhD or a Psych D. All right. And that's all going to be in education and mental health counseling. So it's not like you can just take anything in the doctorate level. It has to be specifically in those two topics. Let me see. If you want more information, you can Google search, you can search under Association of State and Provincial Psychology Boards. That will give you more information. And know that there are, I think, 15 certifications that the American Board of Professional Psychology provides. They award it to individuals. It's about 15 different certifications that you can look into if you are really interested in assisting people with mental health issues. Let me see. Oh, and additional skills. I think that's really important. So we talked about the individual would need to understand analytical software, but that is a definite skill. You need to be able to draw the right conclusions, right? It's like that critical thinking. You have to be able to say, put all the pieces together, the history together. And communication skills. The worst thing you want to do is go to a therapist that doesn't communicate back to you. So, like I said earlier, a therapist will paraphrase things that you are saying, summarizing things that you are saying. You'll hear them saying things like, so let me reiterate what you just said, things of that nature. Or let me recall, is this what you are saying? Things of that nature. They're always going to make sure that in their active listening, what you are saying is exactly what they heard. Because sometimes in the communication process, what someone is actually saying doesn't always align up with what someone hears. So in that process, that is what a therapist is doing, making sure that when they are writing those notes, that they are accurate in what they are actively listening from you. And then also they must be people of integrity, because we know, I work in higher education, and for higher education, we have many different rules, laws that we have to uphold. FERPA, there's different ones to make sure that our students' confidentiality is upheld at all costs. And so we're doing that. But a psychologist or psychiatrist or a clinician or a therapist, they're making sure that not only, records on, I would say on this level are being done, but they're making sure your health records are not being exposed to just anyone. So if you are seeing a therapist or you're seeing someone, no one can just call up and say, I would like to get some information on such and such. No, they're not going to do that because they have integrity. And also, they are bound by laws that if they do that, they literally can lose their license. So that is why I say to you, it's really important that you go to someone who is a licensed under particularly under the state that you live in, or under the state that they practice in, because you want to make sure that all of your information is private, because that is important. When you are, you know, allowing others to know things about yourself, when you are disclosing information. When we say those words, I'd like to disclose, we're trusting individuals that are across from us, that they would take that information and that they wouldn't harm us. So it's very important that when you are disclosing anything personal about yourself and that makes you vulnerable, that the people across from you are worthy of you disclosing, or worthy of your trust. And that's why you always choose a good therapist or clinician. I always say, if you're unsure, there's ways that you can look up through the state of New Jersey. I would say scores on certain therapists or different things, just like we do for higher education or for K through 12. We always have these scores on our professors, or we have scores on our teachers. Well, there are also ways that you can find out if an individual's practice is a healthy practice, or there has been some questions about them, or not that they're bad practice, but there has been some questions or some things that have like kind of red flags or things of that nature. So just be careful in that as well. And that person has to have interpersonal skills. That's really important. You have to be able to work well with others. Just a person that's not so much that they're fun to be around, but just someone who is patient, someone who has skills to be able to communicate and to talk with you, um, someone who is a professional, that they're not there to be your friend. They're there to assist you in the help that you need in order for you to get from one place to another, for you to be able to make it another day, or to strive to have a 5-year, 10-year plan on success of being a better you. There are other skills that these particular therapists or clinicians have, but I think the biggest one is definitely someone who's patient. Someone's very patient and very kind, because like I said, when we usually come to a counselor, it's at the last straw, right? It's when you've exhausted everything else that you possibly could. And, unfortunately, we go to our therapists or our counselors when we've exhausted everything else, instead of them being, I would say I go to God first, but most people, I would say that would be someone maybe that's secondary that you go to, instead of them being the fifth one, right? Because if you're constantly talking to a counselor, especially if you know that this is something that's a good thing for you. I remember when the time I realized that I needed to go to a counselor, when after my parents had divorced, and this was many years ago. And every year as an adult, as this was when I first started out, I don't know if I shared this with you, but when I first started out as an adult, I would always cry during the holiday season. I didn't understand why. And then when I started to talk to a therapist, and we would go through the history and different things, I found out that is when my parents divorced. That is when they separated. And so there was something in me psychologically that I didn't understand was actually going on. And it was rehearsing that each year of my life. So see how a licensed therapist or psychiatrist or an individual can really help you, and specifically with eating disorders. It's not a light thing. It's something that is, you know, it's a disorder. It's something that needs to be addressed. And so I encourage you today. We talked about a licensed therapist. We talked about, social workers in our community. We talked about individuals at various levels that are there to assist you. And one of the things that I continue to reiterate, that was the NEDA, the National Eating Disorders Association. And you can always go there at nationaleatingdisorders.org. And again, their hotline is 1-800-931-2237. And remember, you can also text them. So if you are going through anything related to eating disorders, that would be a great start to get evaluated to find out if this is what you're going through. Most of the time, if you think you are, or you think it's something, it may not be the actual thing, but it's something, and it's worth reaching out to a professional to get assistance. So I hope that today, are talking about occupations, or the occupation of the therapist, the clinician, the psychiatrist, the psychologist, that are licensed in each state to assist in various mental disorders, but particularly the therapist that is licensed in your state to assist with the eating disorders. That is a great start. And I encourage you today that you will reach out and possibly just find out if it's something that you need to do. I hope that today that you have learned something in regards to occupations or therapists, clinicians, social workers at various levels that are available to assist you in your process. So I'm Shirley Farrar, and this has been Encouragement on Fire. I'll talk to you soon.